It's November 2002. I am just getting ready to make my first report in front of a camera. My dad's making something, he says, for the Dutch National Archive. Even if I wanted to share my excitement at being in London, the only way of doing that is to borrow my dad's mobile phone. And calling Holland is incredibly expensive. So no way to tell my friends what it's like to be in London. No Facebook, no Twitter, no Skype, no Tumblr, and no Hives. And a postcard could take a week to arrive and reach only one person. 8 years later, several social media platforms have changed the way many young people communicate. What amazes me is how fast this has all happened. This is a story of those who've taken risks in trying new things and have been rewarded for their innovation. This safari into the world of social media examines what's working and who are pushing the frontiers in difficult times.
Connection is what humans crave. It's what we are all about. It's something that separates us from animals. It even comes before the fact that we have language, because the language is an example of a, if you like, a neural technology we have created to answer this need for connection. We are the social animal par excellence. We are constantly in need of connecting with people for friendship, love, sex, knowledge, growth, enmity, territoriality, all the imperatives that drive us as human beings. And we've created villages and towns to help us do that, and roads, and now we've created something else that allows us to do it even more.
I love this television series called The Wire. The Wire is fantastic. It's almost as good as Softly Softly and Z Cars, which I watched when I was a kid. And there's no way that there's anything I could add to The Wire that would make it any better. But there are other bits of culture where that's not true now, where actually you could add your bit or have a go. And so we've got this much greater cultural range, it seems to me, from traditional storytelling done at its best through to much more participative, much more a sort of culture of with, really. Culture where people do things with one another rather than just for people.
It's a conversation, not a broadcast. Especially for broadcast journalists who are very much in a mode, or very experienced in a mode of, the megaphone, the kind of the one way. We'll do all the talking, you do all the listening, and that's kind of the way it works. That social media really offers an opportunity to listen and to open up and to do two things. One of which is to actually develop relationships with consumers or with with viewers or listeners, and the other is to actually learn from them as well and potentially let that influence coverage too.
The shift by advertisers from printed to online has made a huge impact on traditional media like newspapers. Many have seen their circulation drop dramatically. Since the editorial content has been financed by advertising, there is less money for investigative journalism.
I think we saw these changes coming earlier than most. We've been greatly helped by the fact that we're unlike any other kind of organisation in the sense we don't have a proprietor. Now, if you don't have a proprietor, your only relationship is with your readers. There's no one else to tell us what to do or what to think. A couple of examples would be Comment is Free, which is completely unlike the model of comment pages that used to exist 10 years ago on all newspapers. So increasingly you can have 500, 700, 1,000 comments on the bottom of an article. Another would be the way we now cover cricket matches or football matches, where you get a live blog which involves how readers are seeing the game as well as one journalist.
Live blogging is a great tool for journalists. It's a very efficient way of doing a story because you can, the system allows you to bring in Twitter feeds from all your experts, so you have instant analysis of a live event as it happens in real time. You can bring in content from members of the public, their tweets, their updates. So it has a sense of urgency and action about it, which often news websites can't have because it takes people time to write articles and things like that. So we've had very successful, it's not an experiment anymore, it's part of our daily business. When a live event happens, we live blog it. And the traffic during the election has proved that that's a very successful way of reaching people.
The last 5 to 10 years have seen extraordinary changes in the newspaper industry. The most obvious change, of course, is the fact that we're not just a newspaper. Getting on for 15 years now, we've been a website as well. We work in multimedia as well as text.
The content should absolutely suit the platform. I mean, Twitter is 140 characters. You cannot then start writing an essay and do 1,500 tweets to get your story out there. You adapt and put a pithy sentence with a link to something if you want them to read something more in depth. Facebook is used generally for people to interact with their friends. It's a social area. In terms of brands, it's a fan area, so you very much adapt to that.
We've built our own technologies to do this, to basically use Twitter in interesting ways on our own site. And that's partly because we think Twitter is a really interesting way of reflecting what's going on in the world. But if you notice that everywhere that we include Twitter on the site, it either goes through a human process, as in it's an editor selecting things to include in a live blog, for example, or it goes through a technical process, which is, for example, a whitelist that's been put together by humans that says, these are people that we trust, that are relevant on this particular topic, and that we will include. So an example of that would be including the tweets of our science correspondents on the articles that they write, or alongside the articles that they write. It makes total sense because we trust those people and we trust their authority on those particular subjects. But what we're not doing is randomly including tweets from around the web on our site and then putting adverts around it, because that's not our model.
Specialists are divided about who will pay for content.
We think advertising is really essential to the support of digital content. There's only 3 ways to acquire content. You can steal it, and even those who steal it acknowledge that's not a very good business model. You can pay fees or subscriptions, or you can get it accompanied by advertising. And we believe that most digital content, at least in the next 5 to 8 years, if it's going to survive, is going to be through advertising. One of the things we've seen since the early days of television is people talk about how much they don't like advertising. And yet, when you ask them if they're willing to pay fees or subscriptions to avoid that advertising, they're not. So we really believe, with all of the digital content that's out there, that people will prefer advertising to fees. And then when you add to that the ability of digital to target advertising, to know within the constraints and appropriateness of privacy a little bit about you, and to be able to direct ads to you that are relevant, that are based on things you're interested in, makes advertising potentially even more appealing.
In America, everything is about sell, sell, sell. And while that's a good thing because it drives innovation, as we've seen with the internet companies, it's also not always about selling. It's also about creating something that generates money inadvertently. Like, culture isn't all about just making a dime. It can make a dime, but it's not always guaranteed, right? So therefore, that's why I support things in Europe like the public television, public radio, which in a way you could argue digital content could also be packaged into.
No, we're not trying to make money out of it now. What we're trying to do, our first step is to basically ensure we have the right product, that people like it, and that's an ongoing process. We haven't quite got there yet, but we know where we're going now. Get the content there, get everybody online that they know how to make that content, and then see where you go from there.
Dutch public broadcasters, like the NOS, have also embraced social media. They are trying to build a relationship between a program and the public. Channel 4 in the UK has used Facebook to build a relationship between the audience and its presenters.
one of the strengths of any organisation is the personalities who work for it, you know, particularly on-screen talent for a television programme. And at Channel 4 News, I mean, they are well-known people who the public respond to. So, of course, we want to encourage them to engage. And, you know, as journalists who are active in their community, they want to as well. So I don't see that that's anything unusual. Of course, you know, Jon Snow loves his Twitter account. He loves people getting back to him and actually responds. And on his blog, he responds. He's always having a conversation with the people who disagree with him as well, which is great. And, you know, I would encourage that, absolutely.
Entertainment producers, such as Fremantle, have discovered there's money to be made by increasing the audience engagement. It started with SMS voting, and now it's broadened to include social media.
As a company, Fremantle Media is very focused on building strong relationships with its audiences through its brands. And so it tends to work in spaces where its audiences are present. And obviously, as one of the places that our audiences have gathered, social networks, increasingly we look to extend our brands on those platforms to increase audience engagement with them. This might mean the development of casual games for platforms like Facebook and so on. So we've recently experimented with the launching of social games based on our classic game show brands like Family Feud. We've obviously experimented with moving into apps, into the application area for casual games as an offshoot of social gaming. But in general terms, the big holy grail for companies like mine is to find ways to produce content specifically for those platforms. In other words, not just to extend our television brands onto those platforms, but to produce content specifically for them.
Freak is an online drama that we produced for MySpace in the UK, so we partnered with MySpace to produce that. It was in summer 2009, over 8 weeks. And the idea behind Freak, it's a teenager online drama that follows the story of Lucy, and it's her journey from freak to chic, if you want to put it in one sentence. But it's her journey of transformation. She falls in love for the first time, and she enters a new group, and doing so she reveals her tensions. But based on that, what we wanted to explore is how far the audience is ready to go in a scripted environment. And we were quite successful with that. We were very happy in terms of the audience engagement and the number of views we attracted to the series. The whole idea was that we have 2 episodes a week that tells the story, one on the Monday, one on the Thursday, and they tell the story that happened to the life of the character. So the Monday episode will tell you what happened during the weekend, and the Thursday episode will tell you what happened in the beginning of the week. And in between episodes, the story continues on the character profiles, where they actually give more information and where they talk to the audience and where they ask for advices and where they invite the audience to join them in events or concerts.